Can't take it off his hat. You can't see my face too well. I spoop. That's better. That's much better. Your Fue Coco hatched underwater. That's not good. Just gonna make sure everybody saw the message. Who did a thing? Hey, thanks for the follow. We're just waiting on people to get in here. Not much going on with you, Shard. Hey, thanks. Glad you love it. If you're wondering what we'll be doing tonight, tonight is the War for Armeggedon. The story of how the planet of Armeggedon nearly fell to not only a chaos invasion, but survived 2 orc invasions. Hi, Corbolt. Honestly, the War for Armageddon is one of my favorite stories. How goes it? It goes okay. I'm very excited for tonight. I let my audience vote for what they wanted to see tonight, and hopefully more people will join. But tonight they wanted to learn about the War for Armageddon. Parts 1, 2, and Electric Boogaloo. Nice, nice. Yeah! I invited a Steel Legion player to come watch. Ooh. Awesome. Sadly, that Steel Legion player will have to wait a little bit for the story to finally reach the Steel Legion. For the War for Armageddon does not start with orcs. But we'll get there when we get there. Don't you worry about a thing. What do you know about the Chaos Undivided Demon? Which one? We have a few of them. If you're talking about Be'lakor, he's Chaos's bitch. That's what he is. That's the best way to describe Be'lakor. There's more than one? Yeah, we recently got the Soul Forge as a demon in 40k. This model's not out yet. It's going to be released next year, but... Oh, I'm so ready for him. What game is this? This is Warhammer... This is Warhammer. It's a... I'll just... It's that. It's that. If you're talking about the soundtrack, I just grabbed 40K background music because why the fuck not? All that top to bottom. Well, not top to bottom. I got manga and other things. I got some Halo books in there. I'm not a 40K obsessed bitch. Is this related to Blood Bowl? Tangentially, they share a name. Oh, thank Christ! I need a coffee. Thank you, babe. I love you so much. Say hi to the beautiful people.
I love beautiful people.
Okay, you can go now. I love you. Yeah, I thought I would give people a break on the Horus Heresy. You guys have heard about Daddy Issues Electric Boogaloo. Warhammer, aka the black hole for wallets everywhere. I need some codexes so I can use the over $300 of minis I have. Yes! That would honestly help you a lot. So, I think it's about time we get started. Our story for the War for Armageddon. You must understand what Armageddon is. Armageddon is a planet that used to be a planet by the name of Ullanor. For those of you that don't know, Ullanor was the last bastion for the Orc Empire that the Emperor and Horus destroyed together. And the same planet where Horus was dubbed War Master. Now you're wondering, okay, so how did it go from being Ullanor to Armageddon? Well, you see, there was a little event known as the War with the Beast. And that story requires a buttload of cocaine in order to get through properly. But least to say, some fuckery happened and Ullanor was teleported from its original location to a new one. Thanks to the Adaptus Mechanicus, or for those that don't know, the engineering core of humanity. So, what became of Ullanor after that? Well, the Mechanicus kept it and turned it into a Forge World, essentially. It became a center of production inside its small area, and it also sat upon a vital trade lane, so the Imperium had no reason to ignore it. And so, slowly and surely, the lush green planet of Ullanor became pretty much your standard Forge World at that point. Wastes everywhere. The water is somewhat drinkable. The air is somewhat breathable, and the hives were just regular Imperial hives. And honestly, the Steel Legion that was being produced was decently okay. Very good at warfare with armored vehicles, and having armored infantry units that just performed decently. Nothing too big, nothing too strenuous is the word here. Though they were not referred to as the Steel Legion yet. Of course, Armageddon sits on a pretty precarious position, as it is a straight shot from Armageddon to Terra. And Chaos had a vested interest in this planet. They had a very vested interest. You could say that one god even wanted to use it to launch his blood crusade. And he knew exactly which demon he was going to have lead this invasion. Primarch Angron the Red. The Butcher of Many Worlds, the Barbarian of New Syria. He had failed many of his previous wars, and Khorne was looking to let him off the leash a little bit. Let his favored hound, his favored trophy, spill some blood. And Angron was more than willing to oblige his cruel master. Of course, he'd have to get out of the warp first. But that's where the Blood Legions of Khorne would do his work for him. You see, children, there is a thing in the Warhammer 40k universe called a warp storm. What it is that little pockets of reality tear open, and essentially it's just a clouding space of bullfuckery. The worst kind of bullfuckery you could ever see, you could ever imagine. You go in one side, your completely normal self, and you go out with your twin cousin Jeffrey hanging off your neck. Truly a wonderful time indeed, yes. One of these poor little warp storms ended up around Armageddon. And when a warp storm comes, it usually throws a lot of things off. It throws off local trade, it throws off communications, and Armageddon was left isolated. Now, for all those that don't know, living on a hive city is not the greatest thing in the world. It's, kind of shit. You're packed into a city like a sardine. Earning along with the other sardines and told to work day in, day out. You are one of the most uneducated populaces in the entirety of humanity. You think America's uneducated? Fuck, you haven't seen the Imperium. Holy shit. But disgruntled workers, disgruntled people, they tend to get really pissed when they get hungry. They tend to get really pissed when they're forced to work when they're hungry. And Armageddon was no stranger to the occasional uprising. But due to chaos shenanigans, maddened priests started walking the streets, claiming that a red angel was coming to liberate Armageddon and its people, and that the blood god himself was angry with the rulers of Armageddon. And how could they be wrong? There was a storm. Mutants rose up. Creatures that never been seen before came out of the sewers. Of course, these holy men speak truth. They guide the way, they say. Grab your torches and pitchforks, your autoguns and shotguns. Guns. That lead pipe will also do, my brothers. Grabbing what they can, these foolish people rebelled against the Imperium, rebelled against the Arbites, the leadership of Armageddon, the Emperor himself. And of course, the leadership of Armageddon, thinking that this was just another food riot, they'll just send in the Arbites. The police force should be able to handle it. No problem whatsoever. They underestimated what they thought was a food riot. This was a full-on Cornish slaughter. Arbites units kept communicating that the enemy just wouldn't stop. They would slaughter hundreds of thousands of people, but the onslaught just wouldn't stop. The looting, the massacres, nothing would stop, no matter what the Arbites did. In fact, the Arbites were being thrown back. Men who wore armor and had better weaponry, like bolt guns and auto shotguns, even tanks. They rolled in with tanks, and the tide of blood would not be stopped. Until the demons came. Everything got worse when men and women and children sacrificed themselves on the glory of battle, their blood pooling together and allowing Khorne demons to rise. These Khorne demons drove back all that stood before them, and the nobles of Armageddon found themselves having to flee their cities, fleeing all the way to the capital. where that too was under siege. But luckily for them, luckily for those nobles, those leeches on society, the PDF was there. The PDF of Armageddon. And they were competently led. Good generals, good commanders. Armageddon was a good place for soldiers to retire to. And with that came experience. Organized, disciplined soldiers able to hold off the bands of disgusting and disturbing marauders that came barging at their doors. Lasguns flashed, tanks fired, and the horde found itself being overrun by the pure, organized potential of the Armageddon PDF. But children, this is a game of tug and war. Where one side starts to falter, they fight twice as hard to keep it. Right? And this all just plays in further and further into the Blood God's machinations. Though many would consider Tzeentch to be the trickiest of warriors, Khorne is just as adept at strategy. And his only strategy is to sow more and more blood. He does not care for whence it flows, he cares that it does. And soon the cultists, led by their maddened priests, were able to conduct more rituals out in the Badlands, summoning forth not only demons, ranging from the lowest fury to the highest of bloodletter, but started even managing to get out the blood legions of Khorne. Khorne berserkers, Khorne worshipping Chaos Space Marines, took to the field. And it's one thing for a guardsman to fire upon just another morsel. A lasgun is powerful enough to knock a human off their feet and onto their ass, probably choking up blood as they do. But a Marine is a much hardy target to take down, especially one who is blessed with the rage of Khorne. They shrug off battle wounds like it's nothing. You could blow one's arm off and he'll still butcher a squad before he goes down. Armageddon was set to be overrun. And soon, the Red Angel himself managed to summon himself. And all that looked upon him either fled or joined in his brutal conquest of Armageddon. It appears that Angron's gifts from the Blood God infect those who witness him and those who have a weak willpower. They give in to slaughter, the need to slaughter and massacre everyone. And he kept on pushing further and further and further. His forces constantly battering the walls of Armageddon's capital, constantly throwing themselves, looking for every little weak spot inside the fortress that is the capital. And the forces were completely overwhelmed. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. What do they do? This is an impossible task. Any force we send against Angron and his forces is immediately butchered or sides with him. What are we to do? Hope began dying, just as Angron wanted. However, a break in the storm. A message managed to get through. A distress call managed to get through the warp storm that invaded Armageddon. And just so happens nearby that a force of space wolves, the first great company, led by Logan Grimnar himself, the chapter master of the Space Wolves. Though he only had a small handful of warriors, about 100 Marines, these veterans of thousands of battles, these Grey Hunters, these Long Fangs, all of them, they would see Armageddon returned to the Imperium one way or the other. And the people of Armageddon, they shall be saved by the Emperor's wolves. And so, Logan Grimnar, without waiting for reinforcements, because he knew time was of the essence, would take his grand company straight to Armeggedon. And when he arrived, the situation was grim. The forces inside the city were pretty much set to be overrun soon. Their forces were battered, broken. They had nothing to rely upon at this point. But then the defenders of Armageddon saw it. Meteors. Fiery balls coming from the sky. Though at first they thought it was more demons. When those pods hit the ground and their doors opened up to reveal the Emperor's angels of death, those of the servants of the Blood God fell back in terror as the wolves of Fenris butchered them to the last man, pushing them out of the city and into the wastes, where traitor Space Marine met Loyalist Marine as always they ever met. Brutal close quarters fighting. And it was magnificent. The forces of the Imperium rallied under Logan Grimnar and pushed the traitors back all the way into the furthest reaches of the wasteland. But the fight was not yet done, children. Logan Grimnar could not capitalize on his gains, for the Imperial forces were too weak and meager. He had to fall back to a defensive position, as if he kept pushing, his forces would become surrounded by madmen and chaos space marines. So, he took to a river that kept the other side on their side of the river, while his forces kept on their side of the river, knowing full well that the traitors would not be mad enough to do this, to not charge the line, to not wade their small, meager flesh bags into a wasteful attack. His men were fortified on the other side of the river. Logan Grimnar underestimated his opponent. The Blood Legion does not care. What is a few bodies swept away by a river for the glory of blood and skulls? And so, the forces of chaos, again, with renewed vigor, attacked the Space Wolves and Logan Grimnar, throwing their small bodies into the flowing river, and not stopping, even though it came up to their waists. They had to slowly trudge through incoming bolter fire, las fire, everything under the sun. But that river began to turn red too, children. It began to turn just as red as the sand. And out of that water came more demons. More and more. More blood for the blood god. Oh, it just keeps getting worse. Don't worry about it. Now, Logan Grimnar was finding himself hard-pressed. With only 100 Marines, you could only do so much. Each Marine had to hold his own line, while trying to keep the guardsmen behind him inspired, try to keep them in order, in line. But even that was failing. His forces were falling. His men falling to Hellblade and Knife. Bolter fire just chewed through them. And Logan Grimnar knew that if this was to be his final day, he would fight. He would take his axe and he would hold the line. He would not dare give us one madman after the other. But still, Logan Grimnar is still just a man, as all Marines are. Transhuman, yes, but still they get tired. And in Logan Grimnar's old age, it's only a matter of time before the weary old man began to fade a little bit. People were getting strikes in on him, yes, they were. It was very easy for the servants of Khorne to slowly surround him and his wolf guard retinue. And Logan Grimnar was prepared to die this day. The space will come further from here, but this would be Logan Grimnar's last day. A crackle! These be? Who were these men? These marines of silver and gray? My friends, these were the Grey Knights. The Knights of Titan. Those of the Emperor's own gene seed. 100 Grey Knight Terminators took to the field, and their presence alone banished the demons that harried the Imperial Guard, that harried the Space Wolves for so long. It was as if their presence destroyed everything that was chaos inflicted, and their blades cut through both traitor, both heretic, and marine like they were paper. The man leading this assault was Sergeant Hyperion, a rather new commanding officer, and a very, very interesting young man thanks to his history. But his history will have to wait for another time, as he led Logan Grimnar's forces and the remaining Imperial forces against the Citadel of Angron. Now, you're probably wondering, wait, Angron wasn't at the Battle of the River. Where was he? What was he doing? What was he saying? What was his strategy? Well, children, keeping a greater demon anchored to the realm of reality is a very, very troubling task. A very hard one indeed. One must continue to offer up energy. Just to get energy. Angron could have won the war for Armeggedon if it wasn't this one setback. That he had to keep himself anchored to this reality. He spent his time building towers of skulls and blood to the blood god himself. Not focusing on a defense, not focusing on anything that he needed to do to stick around. He simply kept building monuments. Not even realizing till the last moment that his defenses were overrun. The Grey Knights themselves shattered anything that the traitors threw at them. Their psychic powers, their gifts were so immense. Demons banish, tanks explode, their forces ruptured in vortexes of doom. Until the Red Angel himself took to the field. If Angron was going to lose, he was going to bring as many of his father's corpse-worshipping servants along with him. He cut into the Grey Hunters and the Grey Knights. One swing of his axe slew 10 Terminators. One swing of his sword slew an entire squadron of Grey Hunters. No matter what the Grey Knights threw at him with psychic might, or bolter fire, or stabbed him with psychic blade, nothing seemed to slow this angry demon Primarch. Angron slaughtered, drank, and ate those who stood in his way. Until the young Hyperion, wielding his force staff, demanded one-on-one combat with the demon Primarch. Angron could not turn down a challenge, my children. He was honor-bound by it. To turn your back on a challenge is a great offense to Khorne and his demons. And Angron, though a Primarch, was a demon of Khorne now. He could not resist. And Hyperion fought this great demon one-on-one. And shattered Angron's black sword. The shards flew all over. And Hyperion was a bit of a tricksy little devil himself. He knew that if he just kept throwing his men at Angron, it would not have turned out well. So, the last 10 Terminators that were left were performing a rite of banishment to banish Angron and his horde back into the warp that they crawled out of. And after the sword broke and Angron's energy was spent, Hyperion moved himself out of the circle, and the ritual succeeded. Angron was wrapped in black chains, wrapping around his arms, his legs, his neck, as he was pulled back into the warp, screaming curses and obscenities that Armageddon day he will be back to spill the blood of the warriors of Armageddon, and he would not rest until that planet was rightfully his master's. And Hyperion ignored him. He ignored the Primarch's empty boasts. And so concludes the first war for Armageddon. The remaining madmen and savages were hunted down and killed by the remaining Grey Knight forces. Forces and Grey Knights. Knights were lauded as heroes, along with Logan Gribnar's Grey Hunters. The first great wolf company was lauded as heroes of Armageddon. But much was left to be done. You see, when a planet is infested by demons, children, the Inquisition is inevitably going to get involved. And Armageddon is a very important planet to the Imperium. It's also on a major trading network. And the knowledge of demons, of chaos getting out, it could not be. The Inquisition and the Grey Knights made the hard decision to imprison those that were left on the planet. No man, from the lowest of low to the highest of high, would be able to leave Armageddon, forced to work in death camps for the rest of their miserable lives. While in the distance, Armageddon would be repopulated with a brand new population. Of course, the Space Wolves tried their best. They tried their best to make sure that this fate would not befall the people of Armageddon. I'm doing okay, Crystal. How are you? But, dear children, to defy the Inquisition is to defy the Emperor's will. And though the Space Wolves are a first founding legion, they are but one chapter against a unknown mass. However, this would lead to the morning years for the Space Wolves, a time of Cold War, you could say, for the Imperium. The Space Wolves were nearly declared traitors for the utter disregard of the Inquisition's authority. This war would only be stopped by the oldest dreadnought to ever live. Bjorn the Fell-Handed would make the Inquisition and the Space Wolves come to an agreement. This agreement, though kept between the Space Wolves and the Inquisition, basically summarized as, you don't mess with us, we don't mess with you. And so it was agreed. The Cold War was over, and Armageddon was repopulated. I just don't want to work in the morning. Who does? Anyway, so, what happens from here? Armageddon is won. The war is over. My friends, my children, my good followers who should donate to me on Patreon and here, I'd very much appreciate it. I need to keep the lights on. I need to keep my kids fed. And by my kids, I mean my fucking cat. I have a cat to feed and a fiance. You don't want a Phoenix to starve, right? Remember, gotta pay the bills. I can only do that with your support and your love. Love you, babies. Love you guys, gals, non-binary pals. All that good shit. But what happened to Armageddon? What became of it after the First War? Armageddon was repopulated. And this time with a hardier regiment to lead it. The Steel Legion of Armeggedon was born here this day. Their forces grown very strong. Their armor production was doubled. Their tanks, their chimeras, their aircraft, everything that the Steel Legion produced, they were the armored infantry fighting force. They rivaled Talon in quick tank tactics. They rivaled Cadia with their steadfastness. They were the Steel Legion. And Armeggedon was fine for a long while. They were fine for a long, long while. Until 57 years later. War would come to Armeggedon again, but not from chaos, but by the machinations of the Eldar, no less. You see, there was an orc. His name was Gazgul. And this orc was not unlike your average greenskin. He was just a simple lad ready to go tear down a stupid Yuumi outpost. However, just like his comrades before him, he met an unfortunate fate when a bolt gun turret decided that, hey, that's a good head to pop, and hit the orc square in the temple, blowing his brains out. And luckily for Gazgul, he had some very reliable friends who willingly drug his corpse back to a mad dock. But not any mad dock. No. If anyone was going to fix Gazgul, they were going to hand him over to the most mad dock they could ever find. Mad Dock Grotznik. Now, to explain a mad dock is that an orc mad dock is essentially someone who thinks they understand surgery. They seem to know how orcs work. But you better be damn well sure there's a good reason you're going to that camp with that mad dock in it. You better be damn in with just a bullet hole. There's no reason to go to a mad dock. There's no reason to risk your head over it. And yes, mad docks take what they want. If a mad dock wants your pancreas, they'll take your goddamn pancreas. You don't fucking need it, they need it. How about I just slap an arm on your ass, chica? You could use an ass hand, right? Right? Mad Dock Grotznik made those mad docks look like sane men who lived gentlemanly lives in comparison. This mad dock was known as the most insane one, babbling to himself about creations that no orc could ever understand. And yet, for some reason, the two boys that dragged Gazgul's lifeless body to this mad dock is only up to the gods to know. For Mad Dock Grotznik fixed Gazgul. And in Gazgul's coma-ridden state, he was contacted by both Gork and Mork, the two gods of the orcs. If you wish to understand which one is which, one will hit you hard when you're looking, the other will hit you hard when you're not. Orcs fight about which one is which all the time. It's not their job to keep track of it. But in this state, Gazgul was talked to by the two gods. They demanded a war unlike any other that's been seen in millennia. And Gazgul would lead this war. He was their prophet. He was their herald. And when Ghazghul came out of that tent, he was bigger, stronger, meaner than he was before. Going to his old boss and lopping off his head. Ghazghul was in command. Ghazghul had a target. Armageddon. Little did Ghazghul realize is that someone else was influencing his story. Someone was influencing his play. Eldar Rangers had made sure that any war boss on the planet that Ghazghul was on that challenged him would meet with a series of unfortunate accidents. Sadly, without our precious, precious boy, who would play Dr. Eggman to lead this little charade, Ghazghul would be the undisputed ruler of this planet. Now, why would the Eldar interfere with this? This is the squabblings of orcs. The Eldar are much above the squabblings of greenskins. Not when a craft world is nearby. You see, the war bosses on the planet were well aware of that craft world being there. And the Eldar didn't want the orcs near their precious little craft world. It needed to get through the system in one piece. So, with a little bit of Eldar trickery and a little bit of influence, the Eldar made sure Ghazghul would be a thorn in someone else's side, not theirs. Oh, how the ego manages to screw everyone over. It's quite fascinating, isn't it, children? So, Ghazghul has a planet. He's got a planet-wide wall ready to go. Problem, we don't have ships. We don't have enough mechs that know how to build ships. So, how do we get off this rock? Well, as if the gods themselves have gifted Ghazghul with a Christmas present wrapped up in a neat little bow. A space Hulk came out of the warp, ready to go for Ghazghul and his forces. And not only that, children, but the gods have gifted the orcs playthings, demons to fight aboard the ship. They were too kind to their prophet. They were too kind to their lowly servants. And Ghazghul and his forces managed to make the most rickety and rackety of ships that could fly them up to the space Hulk. And when they crash landed, they found a perfect little home for them to get them to the one place they were waiting to go to. Armageddon was their target. And Ghazghul would raise hell. Cut to Armageddon. It's been a long, long time since conflict had come to Armageddon. The population was doing rather fine. The Steel Legions were well-trained and well-regulated. Because one man was transferred to that command. Commissar Yarrick. Or should I say, Lord Commissar Yarrick. You see, Yarrick was a fine commissar, a very strong, independent man. Very well-versed in tactics, and unlike a lot of other commissars, he was inspiring. He was a good leader. But for someone like Commissar Yarrick, the retired life was not for him. And even though the nobility and the planetary governor of Armageddon were relatively happy to have a veteran among them, he kept getting on their nerves, because he would go and rigorously train the men. You're an old man, Yarrick. Go retire. Go do things that retired men do. But Yarrick was a man who just could not sit still. He was always needing to do something. And it got on the nerves of the planetary governor. that this retired old has-been would keep bugging him about, hey, there are things that need to be done here. These troops are not getting the supplies they need. Or this entire group has failed in their test of the Emperor. You should punish them for it. Ruling a planet is hard work, Yorick. I have to sit here and eat my turkeys. Turkeys, you do not know what it's like to rule, this man said to Yorick. And it would continue this way for the next few weeks, years even. Commissar Yard would continue to get on the nerves of those above him, and eventually the last straw was pulled when Commissar Yorick dared to say that incompetent fat ass sitting at the top of the spire wouldn't know how to lead an army if it was literally taped to his ass. He was sent to the farthest spire away, to the farthest hive city away from the High Lord. He was busy with other things, too. A space hulk had entered the system! Oh, joyous joy, joy! Do you know what a space hulk means, children? Ancient technology. Any tech priest worth their salt would be demanding the planetary governor hand them expedition kits and would give the spoils to the nearest planet that gave them those expedition kits. Oh, the glory this man would receive for just granting these peasant tech priests what they wanted. Oh, joy. What was that, though? Oh, it seems as though the Space Hulk was heading towards Armeggedon. Don't stress about it. It just means it's closer. It's closer. It's easier to land on. We could start running tours. We could do so much more. Don't worry about it, said the planetary governor. Yorick, however, was aware of what was going on. There were confirmed reports of orcs raiding local planets and strangely going back to the Space Hulk. Yorick knew what was going to happen. He warned the planetary capital of Armeggedon that orcs were coming. But why listen to the mad ramblings of a retired war veteran who's probably having fantasies of glory? Not I, the planetary governor of Armeggedon. I can truly lead this planet. I was chosen to lead, and I see no problem. Why are there meteorites coming from the Space Hulk? Why are they landing just outside the city? Uh-oh. Orcs! Orcs are afoot! Armeggedon was caught off guard. Who could have thought that a Space Hulk heading straight for the planet Armeggedon was full of orcs? Who could have seen that coming? Oh, perish the day, children! It was as if they came out of nowhere. If you were as blind as a goddamn bat. And everyone was stunned. Cities were overrun within seconds. Positions that were hastily made by the Steel Legions of Armeggedon and were quickly overrun. Commanders that were set by the planetary governor himself fled the battle before even shots were fired. Units were completely in disarray, completely wiped out in mere seconds of meeting the orcs. The planetary governor panicked. He had no way of getting control of this situation, though he was protected by the planet's capital city, as it was a fortress. The other highs fell within seconds, days, even a few weeks. Defenses that he thought would hold for years, centuries even, gone in an instant. Except for one. Hades' Hive. It held strong and firm, as the only two hive cities that were left were the capital city and Hades' Hive. And the only reason it held was because Commissar Yarick made sure it held. He knew it was coming. He saw it from a mile away. Unlike that blind, incompetent planetary governor, Yarick was fully ready for this. His forces beat the orcs back time and time again. And what was this? Hive gangers fighting alongside the Steel Legion. Civilians fighting with the Steel Legion. What is going on? Well, it appears that Commissar Yarick, not just good at military tactics and command, he was an inspiring individual, going down to the hive gangers themselves and saying that, if you fight with us, you shall be rewarded henceforth. And these gangs took to Yarick's words and fought with him tooth and nail. Yarick could stir the hearts of even the lowliest of scum to fight with him. And with perfect command, threat, and with perfect leadership, Commissar Yarick would lead his forces to victory time and time again. The orcs could not crack the egg that was Hades' Hive. And Gazgul was getting a bit annoyed. Our boy Gazgul, who had long since augmented himself in mega power armor, he was busy with the capital. It was close to falling, yet here he hears that another hive is holding out? Who the fuck could do that? Gazgul entrusted his most trusted lieutenant to go deal with this. Make sure that place falls within the day. And Gazgul's lieutenant nodded and walked off, more than ready to crack the egg that was Hades' Hive. And so he would. This lieutenant was a bit more craftier than the average orc, and would lead the Steel Legion and Yarick out into open combat in front of Hades' Hive. This orc would also challenge Yarick to personal one-on-one combat, wanting to see what this Yumi was made out of. Was he made of sterner stuff like an Orgrin? Or was he just a really smart Yumi that couldn't back up his words? And here, the orc warboss was stunned. An old man standing before him. This would be easy, said the warboss. And yet he was shocked. This human was holding his own. Until the orc grabbed him by the arm and said, checkmate. And cut Commissar Yarick's arm off from the elbow. Commissar Yarick fell to his knees in pain as the orc warboss laughed and laughed and laughed. Problem. That was Yarick's shooting arm, not his stabby one. And Yarick, with the force of 1,000 men, stood on his legs and beheaded the orc warboss in front of his horde, his saber rattling with the blood of the orc warboss. And to make sure that the orcs understood what the hell just happened, Yarick would cut off the orc's arm and take his power claw as his own. Raising it above his head and roaring as loud as he could, the orcs in terror fled the field. This Yumi wasn't the same as the others. He was terrifying. He was disturbing. He killed the orc warboss by himself. Flee, men! Flee to the fields! Flee back to our master Gazgul! Yarick would only allow himself to collapse once everyone was gone, his men chasing down the remaining orcs as they fled the field. And luckily for Yarick, his medics would drag him back into Hades' Hive, hidden under the covers, while someone else pretended to be him in his stead. Brought before the medics, Commissar Yarick was awakened, blood pumping back into him as he's getting blood transfusions. Though they also were trying to give him a robotic arm. A crude one, yes, but hey, what can you do? And it turns out that Yarick was also missing an eye. Yarick was fine with this. In fact, he had a couple of ideas. That power claw that he held on to the entire time. Put it on me, he said. The tech priest, stunned at the request, asked him, why? Yarick knew to an orc that a sign of power like that commanded respect. Fear, even, from the greenskins. And he was more than willing to abuse the orc's psyche. And as well, theories should spread about a killer look, he heard. That a gaze alone from Yarick could kill while he rested up in his hospital bed. He was missing an eye anyways. So why not? Replacing that lost eye with a bionic one. With a las pistol in his eye. He would have that killer stare that the orcs talked about. And so, a few weeks later, Hades' hive held, and Yarick would stand outside the gate of Hades' hive, daring Gazgul to come after him, wielding the power claw that he is so famous for now. And Gazgul was not sitting idly either. Though the capital spire was about to fall, he had heard of this Commissar Yarick. He killed my lieutenant, he made a fool of my lieutenant, and even better, he took his power claw? Oh, this did not scare Gazzy one bit. This was a challenge. This was a Yumi that could fight. One that could give the great Gazgul Mag Uruk Thraka a run for his goddamn money. Oh, this orc was ready for him. He wanted this fight, and he would give it to Commissar Yarick. However, fate would turn again. Ships began orbiting Armeggedon. The ships with blue, green, and red. The ships in red taking the lead. The ships in blue and the ships in green on their flanks. The Emperor's Angels of Death once again arrived and landed hard into Orc lines. The Blood Angels themselves came to liberate the planet, along with the Ultramarines and the Salamanders. These three chapters agreed before they even arrived that the Blood Angels would take the lead, that Lord Commander Dante himself would lead the liberation of Armageddon and push Gazgul's maddened orc horde off the planet. And it's here where Dante also met with Commissar Yarick, crediting him with protecting Armageddon, that this man alone held the line where everyone else failed. And what of that brave planetary governor who was blindsided by this? One who could not see the dangers that lurked inside the space hulk. He had no knowledge of it. Dante and the Ultramarines chastised him. Not only for being an idiot, not only for not seeing a blatant orc horde in plain sight, but as well as trying to fraternize with the orcs, trying to make a deal with the Emperor's enemies. Planetary Governor, you should know better than that. That Planetary Governor would flee the capital spire and head into the wastes. And though a young Imperial commander would find him and drag him back, eventually it was just decided that he should be left to die in the wastes. Thank you for the follow. So, the Space Marines are here. Gazgul is overrun. He cannot handle 3 Space Marine chapters. No. This was not the time or the place. Gazgul would get another vision from Gork and Mork. They told him, no, this was not the time. This was not the time. Your forces are shattered, Gazgul. Flee the planet. It is okay. You are the great Gazgul Mag Uruk Thraka. Your glory shall keep you safe. And Gazgul fled Armeggedon. He would flee Armeggedon. And Yarick would not be denied. Did you really just compare me to a serial killer, by the way? That's pretty fucking rude, dude. That's not a compliment. That's actually pretty fucking rude. That ran a KFC. What? Dude, that's a serial killer. Like, that's pretty fucking rude. Yeah, no, I do not tolerate that shit in my chat. Fuck you. Aramis, can you, mods, can you ban him, please? It's pretty fucking rude. Interrupting story time for stupid shit? Fuck you. There we go. back to the story. Sorry about that. That was fucking rude, and I do not tolerate that shit in my chat. Comparing me to a serial killer, saying I look like one. Fuck. You could at least be better than that. The original in your insults. Fuck. I look like a clown. I am a clown. Fuck you. At least I'm funny. So anyway, Ghazghul fled Armageddon. The second war for Armageddon was over. But Yorick knew the beast would return. He knew that beast was not gone. He would have Ghazghul's head on a spike if he could. And he would take his personal legion out into war to chase down Ghazghul and his band of malcontents. And he would get close, driving Ghazghul to ground on one planet. But Yorick had overestimated. Yeah, not overestimated. Yorick had.
That to society later.
Oh, not a rock. Thank you. Yorick underestimated the orc. He had underestimated that Ghazghul would lose followers. No, it only seemed that Ghazghul gained followers from this. He fled the battle. He was a coward. Why were orcs still flocking to his banner? And during this final battle on this one ridden world that everyone forgot, Yorick would nearly be ran over by his own super tank. If not for the actions of Ghazghul, grabbing the man and pulling him out of the way before the poor old man was crushed. What a humble orc, what a very good man, who would then enslave Yorick, laughing all the while. But Yorick's spirit could not be tempered. Yorick was an imperial soldier. He was a commissar, a lord commissar. He was the hero of Hades' hive. And though he was a slave aboard Ghazghul's ship, he would not sit idle, children. He would not waste away in fear. He inspired the slaves to revolt against their green-skinned masters, and even got close to Ghazghul again and again, until Ghazghul decided that, one interesting thing that Ghazghul could do. Though Yorick's rebellion had failed, as predicted, Ghazghul would throw Yorick into a pit full of orc and human corpses. And he would demand that the Yumi climb out of the pit. And as soon as Yorick managed to do so, with only one arm, mind you, one arm, he did not have his famous power claw, Ghazghul would kick him down into that hole, again and again. And Yorick never quit, never gave up. He would continue to climb out of that hole until he died. Or until Ghazghul was dead. One or the other, not both. But Ghazghul was not your average orc. No. You could think that he was torturing Commissar Yorick. He was playing with his food. No. That is to misunderstand your opponent. Ghazghul did not hate Yorick. He did not want to torture Yorick. He did not want Yorick to die here. He was testing the old man's resolve. And as soon as Yorick stepped out of that hole the final time, Ghazghul laughed. Laughed and laughed and laughed. Until he said those famous words. "You's a good fight, Yumi. Go back to Armageddon and get ready for round 2. Yorick, of course, perplexed by the orc, and took time to study their language and everything, wondered, how the fuck am I gonna get home? Don't worry, the orc mechs have that one on lockdown. You see, there was an Imperial freighter that they found, and Gazgul had personally demanded that those mechs make sure that ship is flyable and can take Yorick back home. Every other orc saw this as, what the fuck? Yorick saw this as, what the fuck? But Gazgul said, Yorick's a good fight. And I like good fights. And so, Yorick was tossed aboard his new ship and sent home, knowing full well that the Battle of Armageddon was not done. He had to prepare. How long did he have? He estimated about a year. Perfect. With a steely gaze and a smile on his lips, with his power claw back over his arm, Yorick was ready. Already in mind and spirit for his battle of wits and strength against Gazgul in the Third War for Armageddon. And Armageddon cheered! Their hero had returned! A prisoner of war who escaped. It is what the people said, even though Yorick himself said, no, Gazgul, let me go. The people did not care. Their hero escaped! And he would lead them against the orc menace once more. And this time, Yorick was in full command of Armageddon's defenses. He was the man of the hour. He was chosen by Imperium High Command to lead the defense of Armageddon. And not only that, but 15 Space Marine chapters committed forces to Armageddon. Not just the Blood Angels, who had promised a company to always be at the ready for Armageddon. Not only the Salamanders, who came at full chapter strength to the planet's defense. The Celestial Lions, the Flesh Terrors, the Ultramarines, the Howling Griffins, the Raptors. So many different chapters arrived to defend Armageddon. And they would hold the line. This time, Gazgul had a plan. Gazgul always has a plan. Gazgul knew that last time, the hives were his biggest problem. And the only way to victory for Gazgul at this point was to remove the hives from the equation. He would take his Space Hulk, which he had augmented with more ships that he could loot. He had thousands upon thousands of rocks, with millions of orcs, ready to go. And so, the Third War for Armageddon began, not with a whimper, but with an earth-shattering kaboom, as Gazgul full-throttled his Space Hulk into Hades' hive to sound off to the rest of Armageddon, to the puny Yumis that sat up in their high chairs, to those big old Space Marines, that he was here to win. And that sign of defiance, that sign that Hades' hive would always stand, was nothing but a crater. With orc rock fortresses landing all over Armageddon, strongholds through and through. And, even worse, as the forces of Armageddon found out, these were not just fortress rocks that they dropped down. These were full-fledged factories, churning out looted vehicles and scrap into the biggest titans that the Imperium had ever seen before. And to clear out these rocks, it took regiments, it took armies to clear out one rock. And it was just an annoying hassle to try and break a rock. Marines could do it. What took a Imperial Guard regiment months could take Marines hours. But there were only so many Marines on this planet, and there were so many orcs. And Ghazghul was loving it. His forces were crushing anything that stood in their way. The orcs would not be stopped this time. But it was a back and forth yet again, something that Ghazghul was looking forward to, baby. Ghazghul was more than ready and willing to get into this tussle with Yarick. And wherever Ghazghul put his forces, Yarick would counter. An orc mind against an orc mind. It was glorious to the orcs. In fact, the orcs began to practically praise Yarick just like they would praise Ghazghul. Ghazghul had nothing but kind words to say about Yarick. Anyone else, though? Boring. But the greatest moment of the war for Armageddon, the third war for Armageddon at least, the capital spire, the capital city, was holding strong. Thanks to Yarick's intuition and strength in modifying the defenses, the capital city had not been breached. They were doing perfectly fine. Until something happened. Someone let the orcs in. As if the orcs knew a secret passage, a secret tunnel. What could have happened? What could have happened? And where were the defenders? The orcs are inside the capital. They've taken over. They've enslaved the populace. Who? The planetary governor, our good old friend, had managed to negotiate with the orcs. Oh, woe is them, he says, as the imperial citizenry was shackled and chained, just as those peasants should have been. And he was propped up as the leader of Armageddon's capital city once more. And not only that, but a major city that was a point of defense for the heroes of Armageddon was wiped off the map. Not taken over, not destroyed and rubbled to the ground by orcs, just looting and pillaging as they do. All that was left was a crater. No rock, no nothing. A new orc titan had taken to the field. Not only did the defenders lose the capital, but there was a new orc titan in the battle. One that could level a hive city. By the Emperor. Everything just gets worse. In fact, a Titan Legion was dispatched to go find it, and their Warhound scouts saw the monstrosity. Nothing that big could ever exist. But it did. And with one shot, the first Warhound was incinerated. And if you want to know how big a Warhound Titan is, you can take the Calgary Tower, and that's how big it is. And that was just gone in the blink of an eye. Soon another fell, and another, completely wiped out. An entire Warhound scout unit that some saw and some didn't. The Mechanicus, at that point, had to throw their biggest titan at it. An Imperator, the biggest war titan that the Imperium could field. And they knew where this thing was heading. It was heading for Yarick's position. It was going to wipe Yarick off the face of the earth if this Titan did not meet this Titan in battle. And so, the Imperator Titan strode out into war, ready to face whatever this was. And they found it. A mess. And this Titan and this Gargant engaged in epic battle. Just like King Ghidorah versus Godzilla, it was an epic Titan battle, It was as close as knife fighting range between you and a fool. Sadly, the Imperator Titan would come up short, getting its entire body cleaved in half. But not before firing one shot into the Gargant. That would leave it heavily, heavily damaged. This would then open it up for an attack from a Space Marine group, who would destroy the Gargant. But 2 Titan legions lost, thanks to 1 Orc Gargant. That was truly terrifying. And not only that, the Imperium could not seem to get an edge over the Orcs. No matter what they took back, the Orcs would always take something else. The Imperium takes back an oil field. The Orcs took a water refinery. The Imperium takes back that water refinery. Oh no, that oil field we took lost to the Orcs again. It was a stalemate. A stalemate that got boring. The Imperium would keep throwing bodies at the problem, and the Orcs, well, they would match body for body. And eventually, Ghazghul got bored. Ghazghul got fucking bored. This wasn't fun anymore. It was a stalemate. Stalemates aren't fun. He fought Yorick plenty of times out in the field, and neither of them could one-up each other. Pfft. This is stupid. And Ghazghul quietly left. Yorick and his forces were left gaping ajar as Ghazghul's ship fled Armeggedon. Where could that green bastard be going? No, no. No, no, says Yorick. I refuse to let that beast walk away again, he says. Ghazghul would flee Armeggedon in his personal ship. And though the situation was relatively contained now, the Imperium prefers a stalemate or a victory, and Armeggedon was a relatively locked down problem. The Imperium could keep throwing bodies at it, and eventually the Orcs would get solved. So Yorick looked at the Black Templars, led by High Marshal Helbrecht, and demanded that he come along with them to hunt down Ghazghul. And though the forces of the Black Templars helped their cousin chapter, the Celestial Lions, with their own problem on the planet, the Black Templars would grant Commissar Yorick and his forces the vengeance they sought, chasing Ghazghul down. But it would not be a repeat of the last time. Yorick would not be led into another engagement where he would lose. But here's the strangest thing about Warhammer 40k. When you're important enough to gods, or GW's profit margin, you tend to get away with fucking murder, don't you? Ghazghul knew his life was on the line. He knew that his ticket had been punched. His ship was surrounded by the Black Templars. There was nothing he could do to run. His engines were shot. His men were dying. Ghazghul knew that his time has come. Or so did he think. For Gork and Mork possessed his psychers, and he and Mad Dog Grotznik witnessed their lead chanter scream out, "Not today." And with one stomp, a portal opened in front of Ghazghul's ship and swallowed it whole. The menace of Armageddon had escaped retribution again. And Yorick raged at this. He screamed, denied the kill that was rightfully his own. Poor Yorick. not get a fucking grip, could he? Sad for Yarick at the end of the day. So, what became of Armageddon? Armageddon is still being fought over to this very day. A new regiment type has popped up on the planet, though. Orc hunter regiments, specifically those inspired by the Catachan Devils. These men and women would hunt down the orcs in the forests of Armageddon. And in turn, the orcs would continue to fight, not stopping even for a second. And everyone sort of just went their separate ways. Of course, this would all lead into the 13th Black Crusade and the aftermath of it. Ghazghul would be risen anew, revived again after fighting Ragnar Blackmane to a standstill. His body would be rebuilt by Mad Dog Grotznik and made even greater than before. Armageddon would continue to hold, but recent developments. The Blood God had set his eyes on Armageddon again, and an old oath would be upheld. Whispers in the radios promised that the Red Angel had returned, and he was coming for Armageddon. In fact, demon units were already popping up. Khorne Berserkers had already begun landing. It was so bad that Orc and Imperial Guard agreed to stop fighting each other and fight the Greenskins. Fight with the Greenskins, not against. Against this new threat that was so long ago forgotten. But what of Commissar Yarick? What of the hero of Hades' Hive? What of the hero of Armageddon? My friends, it is with a heavy heart that I must tell you. Commissar Yarick is dead. Commissar Yarick would die during the events of the 13th Black Crusade, leading his forces against the forces of chaos, trying to stem the tide after Cadia fell. Though we would not know of this fate until after the 13th Black Crusade had officially ended, and Guilliman would get control over the situation again. Reports came flooding through. Commissar Yarick was dead. And a great time of mourning for the hero of Armageddon was held among Segmentum Command. Not only did they lose Castellan Creed, the greatest Imperial general that the Imperium had ever seen, but Commissar Yarick, the hero of Hades' Hive, the hero of Armageddon, was gone. The older generation, these heroes that would inspire men to greater feats of fervor, were now gone. And what of Ghazghul's reaction to this? What of the orc who praised Yarick, who saw Yarick as an equal? Ghazghul himself would rage at this. Yarick was the only one who could give him a good fight outside of Ragnar Blackmane. And that old rivalry, that spark. Ghazghul would personally hunt down the legion that killed him and tear their puny little heads off. Who killed Commissar Yarick? Stray bullet? Stabbed in the heart? No one knows. Records are lost. Individual key witnesses could have been able to tell if they were alive. All we know is Commissar Yarick is dead. But Armageddon still stands, thanks to the efforts of Commissar Yarick. Thanks to his bravery. Thanks to him holding the line. Commissar Yarick, we salute you. You miserable old bastard. I can't salute properly, I'm sorry. But that is the war for Armageddon. I'm sorry it ends on an anticlimactic note. But the third war for Armageddon is not truly over. It's technically still ongoing. It just has a new faction put into the mix. Alright. That was the war for Armageddon. So, what do you all think? Do you have any questions? Do you have anything that you would like to know further about certain events, about what happened? Yeah, honestly, that's how the 13th Black Crusade ends. It ends anticlimactically. It's not technically over. It's still an ongoing problem. That was pretty cool. I'm glad you liked it. Because there's hundreds of other battles and campaigns that I'd love to talk about. Like, one campaign I really want to talk about is the First Tyrannic War. That would be so much fun to talk about. My throat's already dying, though, so I'm really only interested in answering questions and talking. So what would you guys like to know? What would happen if this battle ended? Okay, so there's three ways that this could end. One, the Imperium wins. What happens if the Imperium wins Armageddon? Not much. Armageddon will probably just go back to doing what it was doing before, and that's outputting more Steel Legion. Armageddon was a very good manufacturing world for the Imperium, so it would just go back to doing what it was doing. If the Orcs won Armageddon, that's a pretty nasty loss for the Imperium. When Orcs tend to take over planets, they tend to wreck everything, especially if, like, they have factories. And when the Imperium takes back those factories, it's not a matter of, like, just, oh, we turn this production back to our side. We have to tear this whole shit down. Because, like, I don't know how this factory was still working in the conditions it was kept in. And that takes... But that's an Orc horde in the middle of a massive trade lane for the Imperium. And that's a straight shot at Earth, too. And at the time, that was also a straight shot to Cadia. That was really, really bad. And that's why the Imperium threw so much at Armageddon to try and hold the damn line. Because, like, it's too important as it's on a vital space lane. It's too important because it produces lots and lots of tanks. It's too important because the Steel Legion's a very good regiment to keep around. So that Titan was not landed on Armageddon. It was there for a long, long time. And an Imperator is the biggest Titan that we can make. Like, if I can find a height for it, Give me a sec. Imperators are said to be at least 50 meters in height. However, Imperator Titans have also been listed as 60, 70 to 100 meters tall. These things are massive. They are walking, talking Goliaths on the battlefield. And to have one just bisected by an Orc Gargant, that's really fucking bad. Because guess what, kids? We can't replace an Imperator if it's gone. That's impossible. We lost that technology. So the ones that we have, we can only maintain them. We can't repair them. Or them if they're fucking vivisected. That's ancient technology that the Mechanicum has lost. So if it gets really bad that you have to deploy that, never gonna look good. Is really, really bad. But yeah, what if Chaos took over Armageddon? Same thing like the Orcs. It'll just be a lot easy. It'll just be a lot easier to maintain. And, like, a demon world next to Terra? No, thank you. The Imperium would go and blow that shit up as fast as they could. But better a planet destroyed than used by its enemies. Yeah, chat, if I had to show you, this is the closest I could get us to. Ta-da! The smallest one is about as tall as the Statue of Liberty. And it gets even bigger than that. So, yeah. And how do they land a Titan usually? A Titan will have a ship dedicated to it. So, like, there are entire Mechanicus fleets that are dedicated to transporting Titans and their crews. And they'll just, like, land a ship. Like, they'll land the full fucking factory that Titan hangs out in on the planet. And that Titan will just walk out. A lot of people are like, why don't you just drop it on the planet? Cool, you brace that much tons of weight to land on a planet. See how well it is when you drop a skyscraper onto a planet. Nuh-uh, that shit doesn't work here. 40k tends to live in the realm of reality when it comes to, like, dropping buildings on shit. So, like, yeah, no, that shit's not gonna fly. Also, here's the artwork of that fight. It's so fucking cool, dude. This is 90s as fuck. Oh, that's so cool. Anyway. Any other questions that you guys have for the Battle of Armageddon that I can answer? Oh my fucking god, yes, I know. It's so great and wonderful. Actually, so a little bit of a fun fact here, because I found something very interesting. You see this Titan here? You guys see it right here? This is the Titan. I know who built this. I'm in the town where this thing is. This thing is cool. This was done by two very lovely people. This is an Imperator Titan built to scale for a 40k game. This thing is sick. Like, this thing is awesome. Thank you. Like, oh my god. I fought this thing. I actually did. No kidding. That's big. Oh, yeah. Unable to fit on a table. We ruled it as that we could fire upon it from anywhere on the table when we fought it. It is a walking, talking monstrosity. And the two people who built it, that husband and wife duo, oh my god, absolute sweethearts. Love them to death. This thing is 21 pieces, too. No, I lost that fight. I got to experience what a black hole missile was. So, yeah. I fought that. I got to be on the receiving end of that thing, and whoo, boy, that was fun. That was a great day. That was really fun. My teammate shot me like a prick, but good fucking shit, dude. It was awesome. Yay, vortex missiles! Yes! And it was awesome! Oh, it was so much fun. I had fun. It was a good time. Anything else you guys want to know? Anything else? Any other questions? Anything specific about the battles? Anything specific about the characters? Anything you want to know? Explosions solve everything. I was honestly expecting the story, though, to last 2 hours, and I pretty much told the story in like an hour 30. Holy shit, I'm proud of myself, but damn. Oh, Rosewood. I'm sorry, man. The lore is still pretty good, even if fucking Gullyman fucked with the timeline of events. Man, my throat hurts. Gullyman what? Oh yeah, so Gullyman got frustrated with how the Imperium was keeping its records, because he would try to find out about events that happened and then be like, where the fuck is M36? Oh, well, we didn't keep track of that on this planet. The hell is wrong with you? I'm sorry, sir. Oh, fuck! Flies off to a different planet. Oh, good. They have records of M30. Where the fuck is M39? And eventually he just got sick of like all the lost time records and everything. He's like, fuck it! We're doing this time scale now. Fuck you guys. It's based off of a Terran year. And someone rightfully pointed out to him, hey sir, this is based on a Terran year, right? Like a rotation of Terra around the sun? Yes. Problem? What about it? What's a Terran year to a planet that's not fucking Terra? For the first time ever, Gullyman was the idiot. Much more complex LCP and stratagems. Yeah, no, I get you there. I get you there, buddy. You can play without CP. You can actually do it. You can just play without CP. You can just play with normal army abilities. You do not have to play with command points. Besides, command points are kind of redundant now anyways. But yeah, pretty interesting stuff. Kind of sad about like recent events in the Imperial Guard book. The Steel Legion no longer exists as a model line. I don't know why, honestly, but Cadians, Katachan, and Kriegers got their own units inside the fucking book, so whatever. If only. If only. Yeah, I'm still pissed about earlier, though. Hey, Blue. Still pissed about that one fucking asshole that came in here and was like, you look like John Wayne Gacy. Nah, fuck him. Look at something quick. Never gonna play it. You could hold me at gunpoint, I'd say I'll never play it. Shadow, you will never corrupt us to your side. I am strong. I am fierce. I will never play Cardfight Vanguard as long as I live. Okay, but good news. So I'm gonna give some updates here for like the last little bit of stream. Good news. My editor is back to editing. They finally managed to find a break in the storm. Holy shit. I'll even give you guys a sneak peek at what the fuck was going on. What she's been working on, dude. What they've been doing. Look at this, boys and girls and non-binary pals. Bask in her fucking work. Here, I'll turn it up for you guys. So yeah, she's back to work on that. Very happy, very proud of that. Had to send her a bunch of sound effects, but hey, small price to pay. So yeah, please donate so I can pay her, because I would really like to pay her. Why is that so funny? Because it's my misery added with anime. Why isn't that not funny? You guys watched, and now you can watch best moments when that video is done. She's working through it. Proud of you, girl. Miss you. And another sneak peek, because our boy Lifry got back to me. Our boy, the goodest of boys. The bestest best boy. I would kiss this man if I could. Ta-da! We got some brand new artwork in the works for some other projects that I'll be working on myself. And yes, this is for a essay-like video, because I want to start doing those too. And I'm very, very excited for this. I'm very, very excited. I can't wait to see this stuff when it's done. Lifry is an incredible artist. If you ever want art done, just please go to him. He's great. He's fantastic. I love him very much. He's the bestest best boy ever. He is relatively affordable for what you want to do. And oh my god, he does great work. I am very excited. Very, very excited. But what is the plans for the new year? Well, I'm going to start hardcore focusing more on YouTube. I'm going to start hardcore focusing on Twitch as well. TikToks are going to take a back burner while I work on other projects. So, like, we're going to have video essays. We're going to do more, like, ad-libbed content on YouTube. We're still working on that Mega Man timeline video. Do not get me wrong. When Mega Man Battle Network comes out, we will be playing that. And I will willingly accept any challenge from any of you fuckers if it comes to Mega Man. If you challenge me at Battle Network, I will happily either stomp you out or get stomped in return. You just gotta fight my reflexes, boy. You can't catch these hands. You can't catch this data stream. Ooh, boy! And what about other things down the pipeline? I am probably going to either delete the Patreon and build a new one with brand new stuff, or I'm going to try and readjust the Patreon. We're still trying to figure that one out. From there, as well, I got banned off Twitter, so I'm not posting on Twitter anymore. I have gone to Tumblr. I have started posting on Tumblr. And I will be posting regular updates to stuff on Tumblr. So, yeah, that will take time. And Friday, we're just going to have a community day. It's Friday. It's the 23rd. I will not be able to be with you fuckers on Christmas Eve. That's perfectly fine. My sister is coming, and I haven't seen her since last summer. And I miss my sister. And I can't wait to see her. I can't wait to see her. As well as, yeah, I'm very excited for what the future has in store for us as a community. Who's the oldest? My sister's the oldest. She is older than me and my brother. I am the baby of the family. I'm the baby. The youngest of the young. And I'm the one getting married, motherfuckers! So yeah. From there, we will just have to see what's going on. But in the meantime, my friends, my loyal followers, for close to 2 years now, thank you all so much for coming and watching. I appreciate you all so much. And I will talk to you tomorrow. What will we be doing tomorrow? Either Yu-Gi-Oh! Or something else. I have yet to decide. Probably a paint night. It's been a while since we've done a paint night. Do you play tabletop RPGs? Rosewood, yes, I do. I play D&D, I play Pathfinder, I do all that shit. But, in the meantime, if you want to know more, you can join my Discord and Patreon! And there might be a surprise waiting for after Christmas. So I'll keep you all in touch. Good night, everybody. Love you all. Stay safe. And happy holidays.